Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Obviously, America and Israel and their allies are just mere human nations. And their attempts to intimidate me just make it worse for them, their families, and their offspring. Military officers, Freemasons, businessmen, politicians, you name it. People on duty. They're just mere human beings in a test. And I'm God's son. So if they were going to go address their whole family, would they say, well, they wanted to act tough and pretend that that's not the case? So they made a decision that's going to affect their entire family and their offspring, period, forever. Obviously, that takes one stupid, poorly trained, low-stock piece of shit. So what is this section about? It's about God's son being greater than a bunch of shorter people with sling stones and bows and arrows trying to take on the various nations and having mediocre success compared to my top martial arts challenge. If you were standing before God Almighty, would you argue that modern militaries and their silly and immature and gender-neutral warfare in the spirit of greed and government aggression and mere propaganda is greater than my top martial arts challenge? No. Would you argue, unless you're crazy, right? Would you argue that a bunch of Jews in the story that you picture as looking like, Adam Sandler, Ben Bernanke, Bibi, with sling stones, with bows and arrows, with little swords for little men, would you argue that their warfare conveys God's mighty power more than my top martial arts challenge? No. And on top of that, they're sabotaging me. So when it says that God's mighty signs and deeds, and outstretched arm and mighty hand were with them, and that they drive out these nations, they're talking about things that aren't as great of a sign as my top martial arts challenge, and things that you don't know existed, things that are in the story. But when you look at black people, for example, you see a spectrum that goes to the greatest warriors ever. In recent history, with all the technology and brain hacking, they started elevating, these other races, and a bunch of gays and women start acting like they can fight just as well, and it's to their extreme Greco-Roman disgrace. But the die is cast. And so with my top martial arts challenge, it goes beyond everything. Now ask yourself, what kind of whimpering crafts and martial arts schools and military hand-to-hand combat arts, what kind of sniveling worms, what kind of complete cowards would suppress my videos, especially after perhaps millions of people are aware of my top martial arts challenge, far more than enough to make other people aware of it. Because on various platforms, TikTok, what have you, and various secret sites, and my bumper sticker, where thousands of people seen my bumper stickers by themselves. They didn't say, hey, this guy has a top martial arts challenge. I saw him here. This is the name of his channel, because my channel was also there. And, because they knew that they would lose. They saw God's son, far more impressive than anybody they've seen in their life, making the most impressive challenge they've ever seen. And they knew that their peoples were not up to par to spar. They were not up to par to spar. They didn't have the spiritual power, pow-ear. And I'm not a racial supremacist. Other black people knew that too. Spirit, spear, it, power, pow-ear. They knew they resort to bitch-ass shit like covert drugging, fuming, and poisoning. They knew they resort to to bitch-ass shit like, don't cuss. Don't tell me what to do, you fucking worm. I'm God's son. You have no right to try to tell me what to do, especially with the rainforest in your sniveling eyes. You fucking coward. You pussy, you punk. You son of a bitch. Obviously, America and Israel and their allies are cursed. All the governments of the world are cursed, but they're the main ones that are cursed because they're the main ones persecuting me. The UK, America, Israel. The German people seek to try to look good and try to elevate themselves. Everyone who's trying hard to look better than everyone else behind the scenes or otherwise. Very much cursed. How do we know they're cursed? It's all throughout the Bible with the formula that God uses. And they try to prevent me from saying this, which curses them more. They're some kind of sniveling idiots. If you were to see Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, Sabrina the Teenage Witch Clueless, okay, look up these characters if you don't know who they are. You see the average person in the military, and they're all standing next to each other. They look nearly identical. Some try to be tough, and they work out and make a mean face, mean craftsman face. but they look nearly identical. You know they don't know what the fuck they're doing in life. When you find yourself in Donald Trump's military, most people know you don't know what the fuck you're doing in life. Fighting some war that makes no sense. Being trained by complete fucking idiots who are running a psychological operation on Jesus. Okay, what kind of person doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, if not some stupid son of a bitch in the military who's running a psychological operation on Jesus? Their chain of command utterly disgraced, utterly emasculated, complete punks. Curses on anyone who says otherwise ever. How long has this been going on? Every day they get up, they shine their boots, or whatever they do, they look in the mirror and they see a bitch who refuses to actually serve God, who refuses to be loyal to the Constitution, even when it comes to Jesus. And they'll say some sniveling bitch like shit like they're waiting for the time. I determine the time, and the time has been now. God commands you to obey God through me. If not, shut the fuck up about the time, because you don't know it, I do.